I'm staying away from that shit. Thank you, sir. So before this whole thing started, I gave you my 11 circle test that I have all of our guests do. So I gave that to you, and I had you draw this beforehand, so you can see that a little bit easier without looking at the monitor.
Yeah.
So I like this.
Dude, it's
Well,
terrible.
no,
It's
no.
so basic.
Now the first thing I'm wondering, I like the orange pattern. It
Mhm.
actually really caught my eye the way you did it. But the B, where did he come from?
Okay, so first thing I saw when you fucking presented this to me was the interlacing like a web effect on the circles and looked like a
Okay.
honeycomb, right?
Okay.
I couldn't convey that accurately, I guess, with the lines, but that's what I thought of. I thought of like a honeycomb, so I put the B right here. Then I drew like the shittiest pentagram ever that every metalhead is like that's watching this is gonna want to kill me. But it's off axis. It looks kind of artsy now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of intentional. Actually, it looked pretty good.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna roll with the punches. It looks like this star is kind of like giving like a '90s "What's up?" Yeah, he's kind of like an off-axis
Yeah.
elbow thing, right? And then
Yeah, we
like,
got the PlayStation
Yeah,
on the outside.
yeah, the PlayStation controller, which is like a mirror image, I imagine now, because like that should be flipped, like the square and the triangle and the circle and the X.
I can't remember. I'm an Xbox guy. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
it's
can't remember where they are.
anyway. And then I just want to add some symmetry on the
Yeah, no,
bottom,
it's-
and
It's interesting to see into everybody's head, whether you see it's manic or thought through. I mean, you mentioned earlier PlayStation, so you can tell
Mhm.
you're a PlayStation guy. Hence that you can see that shows up in there. So
Yeah.
it always tends to make an appearance, whether it's simple drawings or something extreme. Everybody always has something that ties back in there, regardless.
I guess
so.
I have a history at AT&T on the bottom drawing a logo. I never had the
Oh.
services ever, but
Well, I thought the B might have came from the Tennessee honey you were drinking. I thought that might have had something to do with it, but
maybe,
I was wondering.
like, I hate bees.
Not a fan, huh?
Yeah, not a fan of bees.
Yeah.
Well, like wasps are assholes.
Oh, fuck
They're the
wasps.
assholes of bees. I don't like wasps. Bees, I guess, are cool because like they kind of keep our planet.
Yeah,
you know,
bees are
moving.
all right. Wasps, fuck them.
Yeah.
Especially like those giant things.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
that I heard they're really bad. I don't know if it's
Can we
Korea.
just like not
but-
call them Africanized? Like that.
No,
just
I'm not
sounds
talking
so
Africanized
racist.
bees. No, I'm talking about the ones from like the ones that are,
Oh,
like
God.
the ones in Asia. They're
Damn,
Asian,
yeah.
right? They're in Asia, and they're fucking terrifying. They're
Dude.
like the size of your hand.
they're like literally the size of probably my palm. I'm a 6'3" dude. It's fucking huge. And the honestly funniest thing about it is like Asia has the biggest bees but the tiniest dicks. Like I don't I don't understand what the fuck is going on.
That's unfortunate.
Dude, there was a time so like I'm driving around in Korea, like usually when you're stationed there and you live off base, you buy like $1,000 beater. Like $1,000,
Right, makes
$1,500 Hyundai. I had a Hyundai Marcia. They don't even make
Never
those
even heard of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Paid $1,000 for it. I sold it for $1,000. You know what I mean? Like,
it's not a bad run.
yeah, it's not a bad run. I had it for 2 years, right? So like, I'm driving this shit Hyundai around. Had leather seats though. Not
Hey!
right. It was like a fucking like 95.
Oh. How good was the leather? There was no way it was still in good
It
shape.
was actually decent. There was like minimal cracking, no cigarette burns.
Oh, that's always a plus.
Not bad. So like, I'm driving around town, and have my windows down in summertime, and one of those fucking wasps flew in my fucking car, and I saw it because it looked like a fucking fairy. Like it just was that
Yeah,
big. It was. I was like, what the fuck? And then like, it was. I was turning left on an intersection going back to base, and it literally was on my seatbelt buckle button. Like, you ain't going nowhere, motherfucker, right? So I was like, fuck. I literally stopped in the middle of the fucking left turn, and like I swatted it and took off my seatbelt, and it flew out the window. Thank God. And like I literally jumped out my car and was like doing a high knees. You know, like I was in a fucking I was like a sleepwalking football combine player, you know? I was just like doing high knees for no reason in the middle of the road. And then it just flew away. My ex-wife was like, "Yo, you're fine, get back in." And
Oh, she was in the car for
yeah,
this
she was
whole
in
thing.
the car. And then luckily though, Korea's like Mad Max when it comes to driving, cuz like there's like rules but no one listens to them.
Yeah, it's pretty punk rock over there as far as driving.
Like Kanane said. Kanane actually he made that joke after he played Soul. with my
Yeah,
friends. Actually,
they're hardcore over there the way they do it. What did he say?
Dude.
Somebody can drive through a circle interchange with like 20 cars on the back of a moped without losing the ash off his cigarette. Like these guys are nuts, and
Dude,
I see that in a lot of countries. You know, you
they're
see
insane.
any of those videos on YouTube.
Dude, red lights. I didn't respect red lights for a long time because I drove in Korea for like 2 years. You know what I mean? No respect, no regard for road laws whatsoever. Like, it was just insane. The only rule that they would adhere to is because the only rule that they would get ticketed was the bus lane. Korea actually has several cameras on the highway, like just so many cameras, and they will ticket you if you're in the bus lane. And that's why buses are actually still a very economical and like viable option in Korea. America, not so much because buses get caught up in traffic. In
Right.
Korea, the only lane that's moving is the bus lane.
Wow. Okay.
In gridlock. Like,
That makes sense. That
and
I would bring buses back here if they.
dude, the metro is cheap as fuck too. God damn, they're clean. You didn't feel like you're gonna get murdered. You know?
Yeah, our subway systems are subway and bus and stuff like that is probably the worst in the world.
Terrible.
So it's unfortunate, but what are you gonna? I mean, we'll figure it out sooner or later. Maybe the U.S. will straighten some shit out. So.
Yeah, Trump's gonna figure it out.
I said
These
someday.
guys.
I said someday, not tomorrow, but someday. So I always ask my guests this question. Some people think it's a little morbid, but I'm trying to straighten it out. But I think we may have answered that question earlier. But if today was your last day on Earth and you look back at the life you've led, how would you feel about not just your life, but the connections you've made and how you'd be remembered? I always tend to liken it to like, how would you be remembered at your funeral? Like, would it be like, like I'm always afraid that the pastor's going to get up and go, he was a great
you're
guy.
a Christian? I'm gonna fuck
What-
with you right now, dude.
But no, I'm no, definitely not. But if somebody went up at my funeral and was like, he was a great guy, that's not what I want, you know. And I want, that's not how I want my life to be remembered. And that's kind of what I'm trying to ask people, as far as if they think that. I know you haven't
How do you
accomplished
want to
anything.
be remembered, Jesse? Like some fucking like 8-ball snorting
No,
fucking
not
rock
so much
star?
that. But I
you
mean,
are a good guy.
I want to be remembered that if you got a phone call tomorrow and somebody calls you and go, "Yo, dude, Jesse died in a car accident." I want I want somebody to feel it. I don't just want people to go, "Oh shit, all right, I guess I got to get my suit out." I don't want that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I want to be remembered that way. I want it to people for good, or whatever. I want people to remember me in such a way that I touched some lives, that I can be remembered in some way. I don't need to die rich. That's not what I'm looking for. I'd rather leave a legacy, because that's how you are remembered. Once you're gone, it's how you're remembered. What do you leave? You leave either money for somebody or you leave debt for somebody. I just figure it's better to leave those memories and leave that life that you've led, and the history that you have. And especially with the internet now, with the stuff you can leave on the internet, you leave that mark forever. So that's what I mean as far as that goes.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, fortunately, I had the lucky chance of serving in the military. I think most of my legacy, most of the people that will feel bad outside of my immediate family will be the people I serve with, right? It really is like this fraternity. And not only that, I was an instructor for like 3 years. So like I firsthand molded a generation of airmen in my job. So like a lot of them I'm still very close with to this day, very close friends with them. Like literally I could ask them for like favors I could only ask of my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they will be right there with me. And I think those people outside of my immediate family will be affected the most. And so like I am very cognizant of my lucky position in life, in the fact that I met all these people and have very good relationships with them. But it's a tough struggle to think about that sort of thing, because like as manic depressive like myself, I do think about that oft times. And I know this isn't healthy, like psychologically. I always think about the good old days, like, oh man, when I had this, good job and, I was affecting these lives positively. But then I don't realize the bad days, right? Where I was in that job and I was depressed still, you know what I mean? So like I kind of have to get to this point where I overcome that, but I think those are the people that are gonna be touched most, I guess. And then like the comics, who cares? It's one less spot. You know what I mean? There's more stage time now. But
Yeah, I mean,
I think some comics I work with that I got close with, like I was really close with a couple of comics in Texas, and they would probably feel it. Here, like I haven't really made those type of relationships, but um, I don't know. I think most, and that's where my mindset's at. I think most of the people that care about me most are not here. You know what I mean? Which kind of sucks.
well, either here or wherever. I mean, it's that look that kind of helps me be a better person. It's that I'm not religious. Whatever I said, the pastor thing. I'm not religious. I wouldn't be able to have a religious anything. But it's that drive to be the person of how I'm going to be remembered that helps me get through. And it's something like that. That's why I say it the way I do, because it helps push me to say, well, obviously if I'm not religious, I don't believe in an afterlife, and there's none of that. But I still want to be a better person for myself, for the people around me, and that's the way I'm going to be remembered. Whether it is a little bit of a religious upbringing from when I was younger, which I tried to shed as far as the religious part, but it still told me that there's a reason to be good. There's a reason to be right and to be good to people, and that's what I've tried to form. But
yeah, that was my whole NCO philosophy with those kids that I taught. Because like when you're in training school for like 2 years, like most training schools are 3 months maximum.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, when you said you were in that for that long, I was like, man, I really don't remember my dad saying his AIT was that long.
AIT is usually 1 month to 3 months maximum. When you're in Intel, though, it's a bit longer, especially when you go the linguist route, because you have to learn the language first,
right?
To a high degree, and
yeah, you're not taking 6th grade Spanish.
Yeah. So what I did was I internalized my own experience, right? And I was like, I don't want to be like my instructor, who was a disattached asshole. He didn't know what the fuck we were going through, right? Even though he'd been through it, right? So like, I just wanted to be a good guy to these kids. So I knew exactly where they're coming from. They're coming from DLI, which they spent the last year and a half at. And when you're in AIT, or like in the Air Force we call it ATC, when you're in ATC for a year and a half, it's a lot more stringent than the operational Air Force, like to the point where it can like stress you the fuck out, like real bad. Like it's a lot of rules, like very limited personal liberties for like a year and a half. So when they get to Texas, I can't really affect them on the operational side, where I couldn't just be like, here's a pass, do whatever you want. But like I had them during the class hours of the day. That's where I had them. And I try to make my class hours very jovial, very comfortable, very fun. And I always assured them the operational Air Force is not like this. The operational Air Force is very different, and you all do well in the operational Air Force because it's very accepting of individual character, when ATC is kind of, it's an extension of basic training, where they're still trying to discipline you, right?
Yeah.
But there's no need for linguists. There should be special cases where there's no need for linguists to have such stringent rules upon them, but they do. So like, I knew that. I knew the loophole was when I had him in class, I could pretty much lead the class the way I wanted to lead it, and I made kind of like I don't like to use the word safe space because I'm not a millennial faggot, but like
I watch it now.
I'm just joking. But I was born in '82. I can still use the F-bomb, right? But like I can make this space where they're not, there's no sergeants breathing down our neck, even though I was a sergeant. Like I was their teacher. I was still in a position of power, and they knew it. But like, it was a comfortable space for them, to express themselves.
Right. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And taking even something from that, you can, maybe that's even, like if it was me, like leading a life like that, carrying that onto normal everyday life, it sounds like that would be something that would be
I gave them weekend assignments too, right? So like we would have our curriculum or whatever, and because we work in a top secret environment, it kind of sucks because like you can't bring the material home. If you want to study for a test, you have to go back to the schoolhouse, which is open till like 10 p.m. at night. So like a lot of times students would just they'll leave school, go work out or something, and come back to school to study if they needed to, right? Which kind of sucks. Like
Yeah.
it's like a good 15-20 minute walk from the barracks, you know.
Mhm.
So maybe a 10-minute bike ride,
Constant
5
running,
minutes.
really.
Yeah. So like it kind of sucks if you want to study, but like I wanted it. Like what I did was like I made it to the point where I taught well enough where a lot of people, I wouldn't say they didn't need to study, right? But like I made it more easy for them to grasp because of my teaching style. You know, I was more real upfront with them. They and like I gave them these weekend assignments that weren't part of the curriculum where I would tell them to go and do something new, read something new, watch something new, experience something new, and on Monday you tell the class what you did new. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And for a lot of the classes, I did that because I found that, it, for one, it helps them with icebreakers, right? Because like a lot of times they come from different classes in DLI and they never really met the people in their class until
Yeah,
right
from
now.
all over the country, so different upbringings and backgrounds, right?
And yeah, and then like they would maybe know them at DLI, but they never really met. So like it kind of get them easier to talk to each other, but at the same time, it helps them with their public speaking, right? It helps them talk in front of groups about different subjects, no matter how dumb it is, no matter how serious it is. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
Like I always try to incorporate shit like that. Like I wanted them to express themselves, and I think they appreciated that. Like a lot of them would request me for their classes
Nice.
because they heard good things. So
But see, that's a lot of lives you've touched. I mean,
yeah,
you may not think about it. I mean, as a, like you're saying, the typical depressed comic, you may not think of it a lot, and you tend to. I do the same thing. You tend to think of the negatives, but you look at the fact of you've touched those lives. You've been there for those people, and you did a lot for those guys to help them get through hard time. I never went in the military. I don't know if I mean people will be like, "Oh, you could cut it." I'm like, I I second guess it whether I could or not, but you help people get through a shitty instance, and that's whether they're going to be there at your funeral or not, maybe. But the life you've touched, if one of those guys goes on remembering that and being something better because of it, ain't that something? Isn't that a mark that you can leave that not everybody gets to leave?
it's something, but like everyone leaves, they lead a selfish life. Like I'm cognizant of the fact that I have touched lives, but I'm also hyper aware of the fact that I'm not in a good situation in my life right now. You know what I mean? So
Well, yeah, but you
it's
can't
like
be always.
you can't be.
Exactly, and so
But the thing was, I could have been. I think my mother,
Mm.
like God rest her soul, she passed away a few years ago, but I think she's always with me. She's like, you should have done this. And like my mental mom, you're right, mental mom. I should have fucking stayed in the military.
yeah,
Even though you're gone for a year when I decided to get out. But
yeah, you're always going to hear that in the back of your mind. But
yeah.
it's you do seem like you have the desire and the drive to keep pushing, and it seems like you keep, again, it's the military training to keep pushing. Maybe it's not.
I'm a human cockroach, dude. I can't die.
Well,
like
it's not bad. You're still here. You're still
Yeah.
hanging on. You're still fighting. So I mean, for what it is, I mean, you're still doing what you're doing. I know you went through school again for tech and internet stuff. So, I mean, that's something. I
Yeah.
mean, that shows a drive. So it's not like you've just given up. I mean, you're not a homeless vet who gave up and just is begging for change. You didn't fall into drugs and alcohol, which apparently, if you deal with Korea, it must be hard as hell to become an alcoholic after that, because you've got a hell of a tolerance at that point. I mean, but you've done that, and that's something that a lot of people can't even say. Some
Yeah.
people just never even have to go through that, and
Mhm.
dealing with a marriage and ex-marriage, and dude, that's when you look at it from the outside, it's a lot more than you might think it is, and you're not giving yourself as much credit as you probably should for what you've been through and where you still are. You know,
Yeah.
you haven't given up, you haven't quit. You know, and there's still something, man. There's still time. You know, there's just keep fighting. That's all. So.
Yeah. What?
But it actually, believe it or not, this leads into the next question, which is on here. Believe it or not, whether if you could go back to one point
Oh.
and stay there, kind of like I know it's a religion. I can't think of what it is, and I still keep forgetting to look it up. I'm sorry, viewers. That there was a religion that says when you die, you go back to your happiest point. You go back to the
Really?
point. I can't remember what it is. I don't know if it's a movie or a real
That's-
religion.
Dude.
But if
I
there
want
was,
to fucking subscribe to that shit.
that sounds like a hell of a good religion. But
Yeah.
if you could go back to a point in time, not a day or whatever, but if there was a like that time in your life that you could go back to and stay there, where would you want to go?
It would definitely be Korea in my first tour there.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the time. There's so many good times. Like,
Well, that doesn't have to be a time. I'm not saying like a time you were out, but like you just said, your first tour, it was just that whole general
mhm.
time. That's what I mean. That's exactly because that's when.
It has to be then. I met my wife. Like, I had great friends that a lot of them I'm still very close with, even though they're so far away.
Yeah. Thank God for the internet. Jesus.
Yeah.
You know,
it's-
putting up silly videos like this on YouTube, it's like, oh yeah, that's great, but the fact that you can reach
Dude.
out and touch somebody in Korea still is.
It's just, well, they're not. They're like in Hawaii. They're like stationed
Well,
in
yeah, okay.
Maryland. You know what I mean? Like, they're all over the place. But the thing is, it would definitely be my first tour. Like, we still call it a first tour and a second tour if you're there for 4 years straight, because your first tour was the first 2 years,
Right.
and then your second tour was the second 2 years, right? And even though it was continuous for me, you can never reach what your first tour was, right?
Hmm.
Because there's always this threshold. I think 2 years is the prime spot to be in Korea Station there, because after 2 years, it kind of gets like a little embittered. After that, you kind of miss going to Home Depot, just walking, just looking at new doorknobs and faucets and shit. You kind of miss that sort. No one owns their own house in Korea. They don't fucking care.
Really, it's all rented out there.
Well, you buy like apartments and shit, and they're stupid expensive in certain parts of Seoul. Like,
God.
it's insane. But
yeah.
it was definitely my first tour. I think the moment in time that I immediately thought of was my friend Josh Pio's wedding. He held it in Hawaii. In I think the wedding was on Maui, was it not? I forget. But one of our friends was from Lanai, which is like an island in Maui County.
Okay.
And Maui County includes Oahu, Maui, and Lanai.
It's like 1,000 goddamn islands.
There's a bunch of islands. If you haven't been to Hawaii, it's beautiful.
Asian.
Oahu is usually the place that most people think about Hawaii. That's where like Honolulu is and like
Right.
the big cities and shit. But like Lanai is a little more remote. Literally, the only economy there is like a hotel, and that pretty much sustains the island.
Wow.
But we went there and we spent 2 weeks, and most of it was on Lanai, just spending time with our friends. 2 of them about to get married. Other friends came just to spend time.
Nice.
Because we had the money. We had excess money just to fucking go take a vacation with each other. And it was fucking dope. We cooked out, we grilled, and we were just on the beach. We rented out a hunting cabin, and it cost us like $10 a day because we split up the bill. And he was from Lanai. He knew people. In Hawaii, dude.
$10 a day.
it
That's a
was
nice number.
insane.
That's
It
a
was
really nice number.
we're just smoking, drinking, eating, and we went to Maui. Maui's beautiful. It's like the halfway point. It's like half city life, but it's still half rural because it's not fully developed. It was fucking beautiful. And then one day in Oahu, that was just a great time. It was that's like not the penultimate, because I still had fucking great times on Peninsula in Korea with my friends. That I wish that would be the time I would choose to go back to. I think that's the prime of my life right there.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a hell of a time, because like you're saying, Korea, you're selling it to me a little bit as I hear you talk. I mean,
it's the camaraderie though.
Well, yeah, I guess that also
it's
too.
Those human dynamics that you can't really like. That's why your second tour is different, right? Because the group of people changed. There might be like 1 or 2 people from your first tour, but you're trying to kind of recreate this magic, but you can't really do that.
Some of the guys cycled out, and
exactly. And then you got these new heads or these old heads that really don't fit with the group dynamics. So like,
I hear you.
your first tour is always the one you look back on most fondly.
That's something. So at the end of every one of these, I give all my guests an ink blot. I hand make all these ink blots, so they're not from a book. They're not an actual Rorschach test or anything like that. So I hand make all these ink blots for somebody. So it's not. Don't worry about if you see something, what it's going to mean. It's just say what you see. So this is the ink blot that I came up with for you. So as our viewers can see it as well. So what do you? Is there anything you particularly see in this ink blot?
It looks like there's like a real angry Space Invaders alien on the bottom here.
Okay. You can see the eyes in there for sure.
That bottom right there. There's a couple eyes look like vertical chinky eyes to me. Looks a little menacing. But like, this is where like my religious upbringing comes in. Those two figures flanked on the sides, on the left and right, on the top. They kind of look like angels, right? So like, it's like the human body.
Okay.
Kind of like on the insides, and on the outsides look kind of like wings to me.
All right.
And like this just looks like a football because we just worship football in this country.
Yeah.
American football, the inferior football, by the way. Dude, I got into soccer last year. Oh my!
I'm not a soccer fan. Don't even preach to me on that one.
Dude,
I can't.
It's great. It's not the game. It's like I think the game itself is great too because like you're not getting 12 minutes of action in 3 hours, right? It's literally 90 minutes.
Yeah,
straight,
I know.
right?
But I would maybe watch soccer more if they got rid of the invisible sniper squads. If they got rid of all that and started punishing diving and knocked all that out of the sport, I would probably watch it a lot more.
I think that's like a big, like kind of like misconception that people get when they watch big events like the World Cup, right? And if you watch beyond that, if you follow like some of the top leagues, it's a lot less prevalent. Like you might get 2 or 3 dives in the penalty box a game, maybe. You know what I mean? Like it's
still a lot.
But the thing is, like, I kind of went past that because that disenfranchised me too from the sport. I was a huge World Cup fan. I would just watch the United States for years and years, especially after their big run in 2002 when they made it to the quarters. That was fucking phenomenal.
That was a big run.
Yeah,
and I remember that one.
And so I followed since then. But like this past year, I got into like international big leagues, like the English Premier League. If you watch MLS, you're dumb. Like MLS is stupid.
No, I know Premier League and Champions League is it's Premier League and is Premier League under. I forget how it works.
Dude,
it's you go from Premier
This
League
is
into
the cool ass thing about international soccer, right? So Champions League is actually what they used to call the European tournament,
right?
Which is Champions League is literally the top clubs from all of Europe and all the top leagues playing against each other, which is fucking great. Think about like all of Europe, right? All the different countries, if they all had their own NBA or their own NFL, and like they never played each other, but once a year there's a tournament to determine who the strongest club is in that whole fucking continent.
Yeah.
That is fucking cool as shit.
That is incredible.
And that's not even a part of the regular season. That's like an extra tournament, and there's always these extra tournaments that have these storied traditions.
Yeah.
Not only are you're excluding the part that there's a storied tradition within that league itself. So like, let's talk about the English Premier League. That's the top flight of the English soccer system, right? So like, that's the top one. That's the 1-tier organization, tier 1, right?
Yeah.
That organization is a 9-tier pyramid, where the English Premier League's the top. Right under that is what they call the Championship, which is tier 2, and then there's League 1, League 2, and then like the 5 underneath are kind of like amateur, semi-pro. But like they all represent these towns, and like they just have been playing this in this pyramid for a century. And like there's promotion, relegation. Like imagine the Clippers in the 90s. They would have got relegated. They wouldn't even be in the NBA. Or like the Browns wouldn't even be in the NFL if there was relegation in professional American sports.
And that's the thing people don't know about the Premier League and stuff is the bottom teams go down.
The bottom teams go down. The bottom 2 teams go down automatically, and then third from the bottom has to play a sudden death tournament. Oh, sorry, the bottom team, the very bottom team goes down automatically to
Right.
League Tier 2. And then the two teams above that, number 18, number 19, have to play a sudden death game against the number 1 and number 2 team from Tier 2. And if the Tier 2 teams win, guess what? They made it to the NFL. They
Yep.
made it to the big show. That is fucking cool as shit.
So imagine, if you will, to put this into other football terms.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if the Browns this year, they played as shitty as they did and went 0-16. The Browns
they
are no
played-
longer in the NFL.
Okay, imagine if the Browns played like Ohio State.
Yeah, but now
And
they would have to
Ohio
play
State beat
Ohio
them,
State. Yeah,
And now Ohio State's in the NFL.
that is exactly what would happen. That is
Yeah.
exactly how it happens every year, and teams go up and down. And
And that's not only the English Premier League. That's every professional soccer league has this pyramid system.
and that's the way they work up and
Bundesliga,
down, yeah.
Ligue 1, like the Spanish Serie A in Italy. And what's the Spanish one called? I fucking forget.
Again, I don't follow, but I know the basics of it. I
Yeah.
got I know the basics idea, but I think that is one of the things I do like. I do enjoy that about it, that it keeps you on the top of your game. You can't have a team like the Sixers did, where they tanked for 3 years and they looked like hot garbage. You
Dude.
can't have a team like the Browns, because now it's like, well, now you go down
What
and
I
get
don't
better.
like about American teams is that they can purposely lose to get higher draft picks.
Mhm.
That is fucking, dude. That's
I think it's
a
kind of.
disservice to their fans.
I think they need to do something about it for sure, because I
promotion
think that,
relegation prevents that from happening. You have to win.
yeah, or else
know,
you're going bye-bye.
Yeah.
And then you don't get the money, and
You don't get the money. You don't get TV rights. Your club revenue is going to go down a lot. There's huge. It's like English Premier League. Just that's the one I follow the most. There's like huge organizations that are in Tier 2 right now that have been historically in Tier 1 for like decades. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Leeds United and like all these huge teams from the 80s, like fucking are in Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4. You know?
Yeah, and I remember seeing this, and I thought that was. I think it's a hell of a way to do it, to be able to put those
Think
leagues.
about the Knicks, how mismanaged they were from the GM position. They would be in Tier 4 right now if there was a tier system in the NBA.
And tonight in Runnymede, New Jersey, the Knicks are playing a high school team here. Now, can you imagine that your high school team ends up coming and playing the Knicks, and they're so bad they're getting their asses handed to them. I mean, that's something to think about. That would be a hell of a way to move teams around and keep them playing right.
If you want to YouTube some shit, so like there's like a couple like different montages made, but like in 2015 there's a club called Leicester City.
Yeah.
So like there's a
Or
big
Leicester, wherever you're gonna.
Yeah, like there's big soccer clubs that everyone knows from EPL, like Manchester United.
Man U, yep.
You know, there's Manchester City now. There's Arsenal. There's
Anybody who's watched football knows, or soccer knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Knows all these teams. I mean, they're the standards, right?
They're standards, right? So Leicester City, they just got promoted into Tier 1, and then a year, I think it was either that year or a year or two later, they won the regular season.
Wow.
Which is a huge fucking deal.
Yeah, you just got bumped up, and now you take it all.
They got bumped up. They had a magical ass ride where they had this coach that did like he kind of brought it back to like a kind of more old school system, very pragmatic, and just won the fucking league. And like every commentator, every pundit that was talking about it was like, this won't ever happen again. This is like this is seriously an anomaly. Like it was like the Matrix 1, and then you watch Matrix 2 and it was shitty. You're like, oh, okay, Matrix 1 was really good. Because Matrix 2 was just garbage, dude.
Yeah.
That's how that run was. It was the Matrix 1 of the EPL.
That almost sounds like what happened with the Eagles. We took the Chip Kelly
Oh,
era, and so yeah, because this is long in the future. It's all been won now, guys. So
Yeah.
well, a couple episodes I recorded right before before the Super Bowl, so it was all like we're either going to be going hey or we're going to be going aw. So we because we weren't quite sure. We talked about it a little bit. I think it was Dave Primiano was on in that episode, so we knew they were going.
Huge Eagles fan.
Yeah. So we were talking like we don't know what's. So by the time it airs, which is going to be next week, Super Bowl was already done. So we knew it was going to be like, well, they either won or they didn't. Sorry.
And who
But
knew?
that's exactly what happened. They took the Chip Kelly era, who destroyed a team, that just ripped them apart from the inside out, destroyed management, destroyed player relationships, destroyed everything.
You sound like Jimmy Dolan for the Knicks.
Well, yeah, and then Peterson came in, and he just rebuilt the team. He got Howie Roseman got control of the team again. Built a team of guys who worked together. They all wanted to win. They all wanted to win for the coach. They wanted to win for each other. Super Bowl.
Here's the thing,
That's
though.
it.
All right. I grew up in South Jersey. Very aware that South Jersey is literally just Philadelphia. Like, it's literally just Philadelphia. My dad, unfortunately, from Brooklyn. I'm a New York fan, right? I love the Knicks, my top favorite
I'm sorry
team.
to hear that.
Very embittered for, I don't know, the last 15 years, give or take. The Giants, the Yankees, and it kind of sucked growing up here, but I do respect the shit out of what Philadelphia just did. Won their first Super Bowl. Huge fucking accomplishment. But here's a huge but, right?
Okay.
I love how Peterson rebuilt. I love how the team is. They're like, they're like never say die, which is like a true kind of Philadelphia kind of like
It's the total attitude.
kind of like a working class mentality.
Yep.
No one believed in them, right? And then all of a sudden they shit in Donald Trump's breakfast and they won the Super Bowl. Boom,
That's it.
they made it to the top. But
Okay, I got to hear this now.
I don't like the whole Christian angle, bro. Like, that shit.
Well,
I loved every story about it, right?
I don't like that in
Until
sports
that-
either. Yeah, I know.
Until that happened, and then it was like all these stories about how they believed in God, and I was just like, all right. Me coming from a lifelong Giants fan that respected the shit out of what just happened, because I didn't really follow the Eagles on the inside. I didn't know they were so hyper Christian, which I think most of their Philadelphia fans don't give a fuck about. All right, like
Which
that
is
might be your
fine.
team dynamic, like, but no one gives a shit. You won the ring. They don't give a fuck about because I guarantee there's Christians on the Patriots that prayed for winning the Super Bowl, right?
I'm sure.
And the whole reason I don't like the Christian angle is because, like, I grew up 23 years in the church, right? I just, my father's still very, very dogmatic. He goes multiple times a week. He like sends me like these texts about him preaching somewhere, like love dad, like dad, stop doing love dad, like it's stop it. Like I already told you, like whatever. But like he does all these things, and I respect him for that because he has a sense of community somewhere. But just to believe that shit is true is just beyond me now. Like
It's hard, but it is something
I-
for people to believe in,
I think
and
it's
that's
a good moral compass.
if that's
right?
what you need.
It's a moral compass.
If yeah,
it's
exactly.
not history. It is not factual.
Well,
Like-
yeah, and for anybody who believes that, like I believe Patton Oswalt did a bit that he said. You may know the bit, you may know it better than I do. He did a bit where he talks about. He says, well, if you knew a guy, like, because he's talking about religion, same as we are, and he said, if you knew a guy who believed in his heart of hearts that there was an invisible anus that hovered over his head, and if he was ever a bad person, the invisible anus would suck him into this world, and bad, terrible things would happen to him. But because he believed in that, he was one of the nicest person you've ever met. He is a great human being. You can respect his reason for believing in it, although you can totally think he's nuts for believing in it, whatever it is. And that's my stance. Is
Yeah.
I'm glad that these guys believe in it the way they do, and it's I respect them for believing in it.
I
But
don't see. Here's the
I'm
thing,
not.
though. Like, I'm contentious to the point where I find it good if you find it a good moral compass. If you find it like a good rule setting, right? But like, I can't vibe with it if you think this is really what happened and you kind of push that upon people. And the fact that, like, suppression is the one big thing I don't like. Suppression in the fact that, like, when I grew up, I couldn't watch MTV, I couldn't play D&D, I couldn't play Magic the Gathering, right? Imagine now, I could have been living off of Magic Series 1 cards. Like, I could have just that could be professionally my living, like just
Yeah.
selling these Magic Series 1 cards. They're the most overpowered shits ever, right?
yeah,
So like, I couldn't do any of that shit growing up because it was all of the devil, right? I think only dark things can come of suppression. Like, think about how Donald Trump wants to blackball the media. They're free media, like,
right.
and that's kind of like what kind of like major religions do at times, they kind of suppress you from certain things in life, right? And that's why there's all these stories that break you. We only see like the most negative things, like the Catholic priests, how they
Yeah.
take advantage of
Mm.
young children. I think that all stems from just suppression of like our innate desire, and when you suppress it for long enough, it becomes kind of festered, and it gets like real bad, and that's what we see the end products of those, and that's I just think just the act of that, like telling people to suppress certain desires, certain things, kind of like limits someone's potential. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But them being outwardly nice, like I think some of the coolest people I met were Mormons when I was in the military. A lot of them were linguists because I don't know if the Mormon church isn't really big in New Jersey. I didn't really know until I
No.
went into the military, but their language school is the top language school in the world, and DLI, the defense DOD's language school, was second behind them.
Wow.
And it's because Mormons, they have to go on one kind of like what is it, like
pilgrimage?
it's not a pilgrimage.
Oh, okay.
They go out and they try to convert people. For the fuck is a mission? They go
Okay, missionary. Like
missionary work.
Right,
Yeah.
missionary work.
And they get like selected like a target country, and then they learn that language and culture.
Wow.
And they go there and they actually learn it to a very high level. Like they can speak colloquially, go out there, which is tough. Like you learn Spanish or French in high school or German. We learned textbook style, and if we ever went to those countries and talked like we learned, people would laugh.
You'd be laughed out of there because they know.
These guys are really good. They learn colloquial shit and they learn high level stuff, and also great people. Like they have very good sense of family and like.
Right, and the thing which is I guess to the point, is that if that's what guides you, so be it, because you're. And I'll go back to the part we said earlier. It lets you lead that good life. It lets you lead the way. I mean, like Nick Foles, he almost wanted to become a pastor. He almost left to become a pastor and just gave up football. But he was like, you know what? I'm going to stick with it because this team wants me. And that's what he did. And if that's his guiding force, great. I'm more power for having somebody who can have something that guides them, other than me having the fact that I say this is why I do it. It's not quite an afterlife, but that's what I envision my afterlife being, the way everybody remembers me. That's the guiding force, because it's the same thing. When you boil it down one way or another, it's what's guiding the people. It's the same thing. You want, how are you remembered? What is that life you leave after? And that's it. And it's interesting to see how everybody takes it. And it is a shame. I'm glad that a lot nowadays religion isn't pushed as hard.
Yeah.
Like, people don't push. If, like, look, I'm not Catholic. Oh, you should be.
Religion just limits your worldview. I think I learned that with a combination of, like, actually leaving my house after 23 years and joining the Air Force and learning my own things, like reading my own material and thinking my own way without going to church and being part of these circles. It expanded my worldview, not only being in another country, but being with other people. And, they could have been Christian, they could have been atheists, it doesn't matter, but, like, just interacting, getting outside of your comfort zones, right? What Christianity does is it keeps you in that circle forever, this perpetual circle, and you kind of think this one way about certain things, and it's very limited. And, like, I'm not trying to, like, talk down on Christians. Like, close friends of mine, my father, still is very devout, but they have very, very narrow worldview, in my opinion. Like, it's
I wonder if it needs to be more updated, the way religion is handled.
It's a 2,000-year-old book, bro. Like, of course.
Well, I mean, it's been reinterpreted, obviously, but I think that,
like, League of Legends gets patched every 2 weeks. 2 weeks, man.
And we're James talking Bible hasn't been touched in 2,000 years,
dude.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're. That would be something that maybe this is something religion is already pondering. We haven't,
We should get patch notes for the Bible. Like, it's like patch notes. All right, maybe Jonah wasn't really eaten by a big fish. We're gonna update this story. Jonah was swimming alongside a whale for 3 days or some shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, you look at that stuff and what it is. It was meant to be inspirational, and I get it. Yeah. I understand what it was, and it was. It is for a lot of people, and it can be. But I think they need to update it for people and their sensibilities and the way life is today, and not just have such a closed-minded. This is it. Do it this way. This is it. No,
I
this
used,
is.
I used to teach kids in vacation Bible school. Can you imagine that? Me teaching kids in a vacation Bible school,
No.
where I had to act out as like some fucking like nutty dude in like Middle Eastern garb, even though it's clearly like an overweight Asian kid. Well,
I need pictures of this.
dude, it was.
I need to see pictures.
I used to sling this propaganda. I used to drum for the Lord, bro. Like
oh man.
I learned how to play drums for Jesus Christ, and I felt like I was feeling the Holy Spirit every time I played "Shine, Jesus, Shine." You know, like.
But to bring it back, look what it did for the way you were for people. It brought you up right, and what you said about the kids you taught in AIT. I keep forgetting the Air Force term for it, but the kids you taught in the language classes. Look at the way you learned essentially the religious, the good side of it, to be accepting, tolerant, helpful, guiding.
I did it my own way, but I did
right.
those
It was your
things.
own way. It
Yeah,
wasn't religious, but
Yeah.
you were that way, and you learned that good way of living.
I was more crass. I was way more sarcastic. I would poke fun at them, but I knew it was coming from a place of like acceptance and like that's
Right.
how friends.
You could
know,
have
talk
fun.
to each
You
other.
could have fun with people, but yet
Yeah.
you could give them a good environment to
Mhm.
learn and to grow, and that's something that not a lot of people could do. And it was a religion you were giving. It was a language, if you will. I mean, it was a world of the military. That's a religion, one way or another. Whether you're going to
Yeah.
say it, it's pretty close to a religion because it's a brotherhood.
Yeah, yeah.
You're tight, and it's a family, and the way it is it's probably tighter than most religions ever will be.
I think it was like it surprised me because when I first joined, I never thought I could be closer to people than my friends from back in Jersey, and the people I met in the military, like lifelong. Like I'm talking like family almost. Like
Yeah.
even in some ways more close than family. Like it's insane,
Yeah, man.
absolutely insane. I
So-
didn't even kill anyone. Like
Yeah.
that's usually like what you kind of make this blood pact. Like let's kill this.
Yeah, they got to
I
train you
didn't-
to be killers, but
I didn't do any of that. Like
no.
I shot an M16. I didn't even shoot a handgun in basic training. The Air Force doesn't treat you a lot of weapons training. You know?
No, I mean, I've heard the differences between it. I mean, the Marines is you learn to shoot everything. The Army they
Army,
learn
same
to
thing.
shoot you most everything, but mostly what they give you. And then the Air Force is like the tech side of everything. It's really the specialization.
Well, Army nowadays you shoot everything.
Well, now, yeah.
Army, like you shoot 50 cals and like you throw
Mm.
grenades and shit. Like you do fucking everything in the Army. So if you're into that shit, I guess go Army.
Yeah.
But you're guaranteed to go to the box. Like you're guaranteed if you go Army. Like even in intelligence, like Korean, if you're a Korean linguist in the Army or Marines, you are going to the box once a year, like guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I can't
And
thank
the box
people
is
enough.
I'm talking about the box. It's not a '90s slang for vagina.
No.
which is like
Yeah, I think
the
most people have figured out
sandbox.
where we're talking about by
Yeah.
now. Yeah, and I can't show my appreciation enough for the people who do it and who put themselves on the line.
It's
who
insane.
don't
They're
come back.
fighting wars that aren't even meant to be fought. Like they're fighting for resources and like these kind of like overarching objectives that they're not even privy to, but they just do it. And I think people lose sight of that. People are kind of like a little too leftist, which I think a good mix is always good in life, right? A good progressive, like you have to have a good progressive stance, but you also have to have good conservative values as well. And I don't think it's ever like an extreme of both.
Right.
And that goes with everything in life. I think you have to have a mix. If you're extreme, like look at the Sith, man. They're extreme, you know.
Yeah, it's one.
But the
it's black or
Jedi-
white, yeah.
Also extreme. We learned in the Last Jedi, shitty film, by the way. We can get into that if you want to.
No, there's no point because I didn't see it. So
Fucking
I know. I told you I'm not a movie guy. Everybody gives
Ugh.
me a hard time for it. I'm not a movie guy.
no.
I
I'm not
wasn't-
getting mad at that. I'm getting mad at the film. Like I'm just.
Oh, okay.
It just. No. I don't care. Like I'm glad you didn't watch it. That was just a shit fest.
That movie
in my
was.
opinion.
That is what I've heard. It's been very black and white with that movie. So
Yeah, Ramon loved it. Fuck Ramon though. Like.
sorry, man. Yeah, I mean it is. It's very. I'm glad it's come around though. The military stuff. I mean, my dad was in Vietnam. My dad was a dust-off medic, 247th Med Detachment,
Dude,
Vietnam. I
I fucking feel for the Vietnam guys. 'Cause,
Yeah,
like they
and
went,
that was
they,
it.
they went and fought rich people's wars, heroically. Like they went there and fought because they were told to, and they came back to animosity,
Yeah.
to seething hatred. It's not. It's completely the opposite now. But there are still people that kind of like shit on the military, even though military people are some of the best people I ever met in my life. And
Yeah.
you know, it's the fact that they grew up in shit towns like me, and they wanted to actually do something with their lives, and they actually do something incredible.
Yeah.
And people just accuse them of these things. You have to look at leadership, not the personnel that carries out the orders. You have to look at people giving the orders.
Yeah, don't get mad at the guys that go out there and serve. That's the way I see it. Like, I don't like why we're fighting, but I respect the shit out of the guys who are, because they're the ones that are doing the things I can never do, that are out there. Some of them don't come back, unfortunately, and it sucks. But these are the guys that are doing it, that are the brave soldiers. And to see the way that was in Vietnam, and to know the way it was, and
you see the Ed Burns documentary? Really good.
I did not. I will have to take a look at this. It's on Vietnam, or just?
Yeah, it's on Vietnam. It's like a 10-part series.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's an undertaking.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take a look into it. But I mean, I've heard so much of it from my dad, because being a dust off medic, he was called in when shit got ugly. He was called in to pull out people who weren't in good shape. The difference between a doctor and a medic.
I think everyone in the military should learn how to pull out, by the way. A lot of kids everywhere. A lot of half German, half like GIs, baby boomers.
Half Korean, half German.
Half Korean.
But he pulled a lot of people out of shit, and it's what somebody always told me, what the difference between a doctor and a medic is. A doctor tries to keep you from dying, and a medic keeps you comfortable while you die. So, I mean, I know you can probably appreciate that, but it's those were the guys that did it, and those were the guys that were over there. And whether the war was,
your dad's seen some serious shit, you know that, right?
Yeah, he was in some whacked out times, and like you said, it was the coming back that I can't even imagine. Thinking of these guys being over there, and seeing the videos of people coming home now. And it's such a fucking different animal. Looking at the airport videos of people coming home, it's such a different animal. Yeah. And to think, I'm gonna go one story before I end this. A while ago, several years ago, I purchased something on Craigslist. I purchased a guitar, a little travel guitar, little tiny thing, nice little guitar. I purchased this off this guy. I was still working in Philadelphia at the time, and I met this guy over at Chicky and Pete's. So I was out. It was on lunch, and the guy's like, "Yeah, let's just sit down for lunch." We bought the guitar. He's like, "Let's just sit down for lunch, whatever." I said, "Fine, no problem." I'm talking with this guy, and I talked about the same thing. I somehow I forget what we were talking about Army or something like that, and we got into. I said, "Yeah, my dad was a Vietnam vet," and I said something about that, and the dude started to cry, because he's like, "Look, the next time you see your father, apologize to him for me, because I was one of those people that was outside the bus." And this is a grown man starting to cry, and to see how horrible he felt about what had happened. And
you see some of those people too in the documentary series. They kind of go over both sides. They even talk to Vietnamese people that fought for the Vietnamese, like the North Vietnamese army and shit.
And to see that was like, to see the people realize, holy shit, like now they see, like, we might not have liked the war, but that's exactly what he said. We were protesting the wrong people.
Yeah.
These aren't the people we should be yelling at. It's
the policy
them
makers,
up there.
Decision makers.
They're the one, on the top of the ladder. They're the ones. And to see this, it changed me, and changed the way I saw all the way people thought about the wars, and that war especially. It was something.
I got into a little thing with my sister this past Christmas. She was like shitting on cops or something like that, right? Because there's my son visited me with my ex-wife for Christmas, and we were all hanging out at my dad's house, and my son said he wanted to be a cop, and my sister gave this real negative reaction. She was like, "Oh my God, they're terrible, right? Terrible people." And I was just like, "Look," so I had to break it down for her. I was like, "Look, Angie, like those cops that you think are terrible people, they're just people that didn't have anything else, right? And they wanted to make a good career out of nothing. Like, think about me. I joined the Air Force from Pemberton, right? I made a great career. I travel internationally, made good money, made great connections, and that was only possible because I joined the Air Force. Cops are the same way. Cops join because that's the best career path, and you know what? They become a good person. I was like some of the best people in the military, and I told her too. It's the same people have misconceptions about the military, that we're all just killers and we all just go to the Middle East and like never think about what we do. It's not that way. And she met a lot of my military friends, and she was taken aback. She was like, I never thought about it that way. I was like, you have to think about it that way. These people are not the people out there making decisions.
Yeah.
These people are good people. 99% of them are good people doing the right thing, and there might be the 1% you read about in the news. Same thing with the military, just these assholes.
Which you never hear about.
Yeah.
You never hear about. If you heard about how many people get a BCD on a regular basis, or or just get discharged, a dishonorable discharge, you don't hear about that. For whatever reasons. You don't hear about that stuff, but it's like, these are the same people, they're the people that protect our country. And yet they're getting the same thing, but you don't hear about it because the media is making the big stink about the police. So they're making this big thing out to be.
Dude,
but
it's literally just the bad apples.
Yeah,
and like,
exactly.
You could do that with any organization. You could take bad apples, and it'll look like terrible ass infractions, right? But the
showbiz
cops,
right now.
Oh God.
That's all we got to say right now is showbiz.
Yeah, but the cops, dude, like they're the same. They're the same sort of fraternity. They're guys that are just making their lives the best way that they can, and they're good people. And like most of the time, I'm not saying every one of them. It's just like, and that's why she took it personally, because she came to Korea to visit me, and she met a lot of my friends, right? And these are really, really good people. And she kind of just sat back. She's like, I apologize. And she actually reevaluating. She's like a total extreme leftist SJW living in San Francisco and shit. You know what I mean? And but I'm kind of glad that she kind of shifted her viewpoint, at least marginally, to at least humanize what she's saying. You know? You can't condemn an entire force of people for the bad apples.
That's the truth. That's the truth. So I better wrap this up before we go too long, because I think we're at about the hour and 52-minute mark right now. What my computer's telling me here.
Oh shit! Sorry,
no, it's
audience.
fine, man. No, it's fine. I'm probably gonna break this up into 2 pieces, like I've done before.
Okay.
It's no big deal. Like I said, if we go deep, we go deep, and that's what I want people to see. That's what I'm doing with this. So. Was there anything else you wanted to plug or share? A Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything like that you want to get out there for people?
I'm from the 90s. I gave you my phone number. It's
we'll leave that out. That's
okay.
fine.
That's
cool. So.
You could call me. I won't pick up because I think you're a creditor, but leave me a voicemail.
Yeah, we heard the money issues before, so he's probably not. He's got to be one of the people that doesn't answer his phone anymore. So don't worry about that. But no, absolute pleasure to have you on, sir. I will make sure that we get this video out and that everybody can see a little bit to what goes on, to see some of the military stuff, because we had Mike Fox on, who, we talked a little bit about military stuff.
Oh, I'm sure his is a lot more dark.
No, not necessarily. No,
Okay.
I mean, everybody's got their own experience with the military, and I don't think we went as deep, but
it's kind of like a 1,000-yard stare, dude. Though, you know what I mean? Kind of like a very introspective.
Yeah, but I think he would have been that way without that. I think Fox is he's a thinker. Yeah. He's always been, believe me, he's helped me with this podcast. I mean, not besides just having him on, he's helped me with stuff behind the scenes that you guys don't get to see. He's helped me with little stuff here and there with audio, and he's the one who spotted like the noise and can tell me like how to fix little stuff, because he's got that stuff. He does a video production company, so when he sees things that aren't right, he wants to fix it, which
that's cool.
Which is a man after my own heart, because as a woodworker, you don't want to make a project and let it out half-assed. Yeah. So that's what you do. So that's
he kind of Padawaned you a little bit,
which is nice.
Jedi secrets.
Exactly. And so now we've got this great podcast that I try to send out to you guys. So as always, if you guys are enjoying this, either part 1, part 2, like and subscribe down below. Share the videos, because it helps me make content for you guys. It helps show me that you guys are liking it, you guys are watching it. Makes me want to keep sending stuff out to you guys on a regular basis. So every Wednesday I'm trying to get these videos to you. But as a new addition, which I'm going to announce here, the Patreon for this channel is now live. It's now live 100%.
Oh.
I'm going to put a link below. It's probably going to be in some previous videos. I'm probably going to put it in the description. But the Patreon is live. So if you want to help out, there's a couple incentive levels. You can get yourself a pen made live twitched. I'll make you, if you subscribe for a couple months, I will make you a pen and I will live twitch it.
That's pretty
out
dope.
there for it. Yeah, I will make you the pen and I will send you an actual pen.
I don't think you guys have seen his pens or felt them. They're fucking dope.
Yeah, they're good, solid, sturdy pens, solid wood or acrylic pens. So that's one of the incentives. For the other one, for just a basic small donation.
I think you could pierce a chest cavity with your pens. They're craftsmanship.
Some of them are heavy enough you could probably crack a skull.
Yeah.
There's a couple really heavy
Try to
ones.
do that with a Bic, asshole.
Never.
You're not going to do it.
No.
You want to commit murder, you got to commit to his Patreon.
Unless you're John Wick. But unless you're John Wick. So I'm glad you get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Patreon's live, so subscribe. It's gonna help me keep bringing content to you guys and keep me making stuff like having mics that work. Because this is all thrown together stuff. To be honest with you guys, I've got a half decent mic over here. It'll help me bring regular mics to this whole thing and equipment and more stuff, and hopefully get more guests and who knows, swag, stickers, all kinds of cool stuff to send out to people, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So check out the Patreon below. The link's going to be down there. Like, subscribe, and everything. And if Paul comes up with any extra shows between now and whenever this is happening and airing, I'll make sure that I have those below there. So definitely check him out. He's a great comic. We miss seeing you at High Note. You got to get your ass back out there once in a while, man.
Yeah.
We do miss you over there, so hopefully you can get out there. We'll get to see you back on the comedy scene and just let it out there a little bit, man, because we miss seeing you. We really do. So
thanks, dude.
So it's been a pleasure. Thank you again, YouTube, and thank you, everybody, for subscribing. And as always, don't forget your toilet poncho. Take care.